Jaby man. We'll find out all you can about Spider-Man. Welcome folks, I'm Jaby Koay, and we are looking at Spider-Man No Way Home official trailer breakdown, Easter eggs, villains explained, and hidden details from Heavy Spoilers. Thank you, Heavy Spoilers, for allowing me to react to this. Very much appreciate it. If you haven't already, please subscribe to Heavy Spoilers. There's a link in the description below for the video I'm about to watch. If you want to click on that, hit the original with an upvote. Also subscribe here, hit that bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up to let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. Alright, let's find out all we can from Heavy Spoilers.
Welcome to the Heavy Spoilers Show. I'm your host Paul, aka the Spider Menace, that's here to bring you a full breakdown of the new Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. The second teaser is filled to the brim with Easter eggs, big reveals, and some major hints towards what's happening in the film. I also want to give a reaction to the new look and discuss some plot leaks on the film, but obviously I'll talk about that at the end of the video in case you want to avoid some of the major spoilers. That being said, there will be some of the more minor ones in the first part of the video, so if you've managed to avoid some of the biggest reveals on the web and don't want things ruined, then I recommend that you swing out of here. With that out of the way, there's no way back from this point onwards. Now let's get into our No Way Home trailer breakdown. Okay, so the first trailer for the movie very much tackled the opening act of the film. It pretty much showed the ramifications of Peter's name being revealed, how it changed his life, his attempts to reverse things with the help of Doctor Strange, and how this ultimately backfired and brought across several characters from the multiverse. Now as for this trailer, it leans heavily into the villains, gives some of their motivations and character beats, and it also reveals their incredible costumes before ending on a big tease. However, we start off with shots that pick up right after the end of Far From Home, and these include ones that were shown in the first teaser, namely the Public Enemy billboard. This imagery of a half Peter, half Spider-Man has been used several times in the comics in order to display his spider sense, and it was also shown on the front cover of the Daily Bugle when reporting his identity reveal. Peter also says that he's only had 1 week where his life felt normal since he got bit by the radioactive spider, and this is when MJ found out who he was. I think the movie is very much going to tackle MJ also forgetting his identity too, and he'll have to decide whether to bring her back into the fold as she's clearly being put in a lot of danger. This happens not only at the start of the trailer when they have to jump off the bridge, but also when they swing through the subway, and she falls off the Statue of Liberty at the end of the teaser.
That's like the classic dilemma, isn't it? The ones you love are always the ones who are most in danger. Whether you're a superhero or a cop, if you piss someone off and they find out who your family is, who you're connected to, who you love, those people are now not only in danger, but it's also a distraction for you, who is supposed to be the superhero, focused on fighting the crime, focused on taking down the villain. Now you can't do it quite as effectively because you're distracted saving your Betty, or saving your pal, or saving your, your parents, whatever the case might be. Obviously not the parents in the case of Spider-Man, but you know what I'm saying.
Now we see Strange saying that the MCU got some visitors when Peter botched the spell, but it was you, mate, to be fair. You botched this spell. Now in to go with this are images of the pumpkin bomb before we're introduced to our first big bad. This is the Green Goblin, who's back in his classic costume from the first Spider-Man movie, and he's being reprised once more by Willem Dafoe. I always thought that it kinda sucked that the Raimi movies killed off so many of the villains, as it would have been brilliant to see Osborn appear throughout the entire trilogy. I know that Harry hallucinated seeing him in the other movies, but because of the impact he left on the first film, it just felt like something was missing. Though everyone loves Doc Ock, for me, Dafoe is the biggest villain for the film, and from what I've heard, he's gonna be the main bad guy in it. There's a lot of leaks going around on the movie, and from what I've been told, his costume will go through several changes in it.
I'm inclined to agree, at least to some degree. I know that Spider-Man 2 in the Sam Raimi trilogy is the classic. It's the one that everybody loves the most, but for me, the one that left the biggest impression on me is Green Goblin, and it's just because the nature of Green Goblin and how William Dafoe played it. It's so iconic, it's so comic book-esque. We'll meet again, Spider-Man!
We'll meet again, Spider-Man!
I remember as a kid watching that and being like, wow, it's just like, it feels like a comic book come to life in a film. So the possibility of him being the primary villain actually has me stoked.
Firstly, when the villains arrive, he'll be in his classic one from the Raimi-verse that we saw on the poster. This will get damaged and he'll end up losing the helmet. From this point out, he'll lie low and pretend to be a homeless person, and he'll also wear a poncho. Is it a poncho? Anyway, he'll then travel to Feast, which, as we know from Far From Home, is run by Aunt May. Here he'll encounter Peter, and he'll tell him about the villains dying if they go home, which will set off a chain of events that leads to Peter freeing them. I'll talk about this more later on in the plot leaks part of the video, but Goblin will also get drones, and he'll wear goggles for his final look, which I'm sure you've seen if you've been following the channel, which you bloody should have. Now as for the black suit, it's been confirmed now that this will actually just be the red and black suit turned inside out. If you saw some of the shots from the leaked alternate trailer, you'll have known for a while now that this happens because Peter gets green paint thrown on him by a Mysterio supporter. Yesterday, big screen leaks revealed that the magic webs we've seen in the toys will also be given to him by Strange, and these will have the power to send the villains back to the prison just below the Sanctorum. That's a really good idea, and it makes sense as to why he'd use these. Now, it's also possible that he keeps some of the nanotech, and this is how he makes the integrated suit, which looks like a cross between the black one and the Iron Spider. From this point, we get some extended looks at the bridge scene, namely Ock fighting Peter after he likely just jumped off the car that he suited up on.
I was actually wondering about that myself while watching the trailer. Peter's got the magic going around his wrist. I'm like, well, obviously Doctor Strange gave that to him, but he seems so chill while Electro's behind him. It's a supervillain behind him, and he's just doing his thing. So it seemed to me that the logical thing was that he had some kind of magic to put them away.
This is an awesome action scene, and Peter even uses double webs as he runs away. Go on, run, you coward. Now, Doc Ock was heavily revealed in the first trailer, and he was pretty much a thing they closed out on to blow everyone's mind. The bridge scene actually takes place at the Hudson River, which is where the character was killed in the Raimi movie, so it's a nice little callback to that. Now, though in the first trailer he seemed like quite a threatening presence, it seems like he's actually trying to reason with Peter in this one, which makes me think that he's not a completely malevolent force. If you pay close attention to the differences between this new look and the last one, you might also notice that the villain's tentacles have changed slightly. This was shown in the Empire magazine photos and images, and we saw as the tentacles went from their normal look when he was squeezing Peter's head to having red and gold lace throughout them.
Right.
I actually have a theory that when Doc Ock holds Peter in the air, that the tentacles will absorb the nanotech in his suit, and that this then will be overtaken by the tentacle AI. This would explain why Peter doesn't really seem to be using the integrated suit that much beyond the bridge moment, and if you look at the trailer and images, he's kind of swapping between the red and black one and also the black one. So I think the nanotech will be absorbed into Ock's tentacles, and he'll then go back to his other version. He also unmasks Peter in the trailer, and is confused as to why he's not the Tobey Maguire version. When the trailer first released, a lot of people theorized that the person he was saying "Hello Peter" to was actually Tobey, but I think this confirms that it was indeed just Holland's version. Now, there are a lot of teasers towards them showing up, but we'll talk about that later on towards the end of the video. Now, just as he has him on the wall, you can also see in slow motion that the nanotech quickly covers Peter's chest, and it looks like there's less here, potentially tying into that theory about the nanotech being on his tentacles. There's more shots of Peter avoiding him, and we also get a fun bit in which they laugh about how his name is Dr. Octopus whilst he stands imprisoned. The de-aging on Melina is fantastic, and you might also notice that MJ, Ned, and Peter are all in the clothes that they had on in the first look images.
I had no idea that was de-aging. That's how good that was. I was completely oblivious to that, so kudos to the VFX team on that.
In that we watched as they snuck down to the basement, and this joking moment in the Sanctorum is a nice juxtaposition between the fight on the bridge. Now, I think this moment on the bridge is based loosely on the Happy Birthday storyline. In the graphic novel, we open with Dormammu attacking Times Square in the middle of New York. Strange went to cast a spell to send him back to the void, but Peter interrupted this and it caused the multiverse to rip open. In the Terror of Reality, he encountered two versions of himself, namely a one from his past and a one from his future. Peter realized that he could actually affect the realities and slightly change things, potentially even stopping himself from becoming Spider-Man. The book ended with him fighting lots of different villains from across the multiverse, which this movie is of course also doing. This raged across New York City, and it included all of the villains that we've seen in the teasers. Strange managed to restore reality, and with it being Peter's birthday, we ended with him giving a present which brought forth the spirit of Uncle Ben. Ben said he was really happy with him, and also how he'd handled his great power and responsibilities. Though I don't know if this will be in the movie, I think it would be awesome to see Uncle Ben, and if they got a big actor to play the part, it would really end the film on a high note. Now, accompanying this bridge scene is a quick shot of the Statue of Liberty, which has a Captain America shield. This is highly rumoured to be where the final showdown is, and on it you can catch not only a storm cloud indicating Electro, but also the shield at the top and a sign for the statue just below it. I put a yellow arrow in so you can see, because I know you miss it, you idiot. Now, later on in the trailer, we get a shot in which Peter stands on top of the statue's head, and you can also catch him holding the cube as well. There's also a blast on it similar to the spell, and my guess is that this is the warning that Strange gives at the end when he says more people are coming through. Either way, there's lots of moments of this scene in the trailer, namely the statue falling apart and Peter jumping after MJ. Now, we also catch Peter at a power station, and I'm guessing that this is where the showdown with Electro is. Peter is put in charge of getting the villains back, and he has to Scooby-Doo this crap. We also see the opposite side of the image from the first look, and can confirm that it is indeed Strange at the top of the stairs. MJ rightly points out that this is all kinda his mess, which, yeah, she's right, you botched this spell, you moron. Like the thumbs up button if you think Strange botched the spell. Now we get some continued looks of the Sandman fight, and then also a look at someone reporting on it, aka J. Jonah Jameson. You can see that he's brought with him a Daily Bugle van, and it's nice to see him actually reporting on stuff instead of just being the editor that he was in the comics. Now, the trailer very much gives us a reason as to why Peter and Doctor Strange end up going head to head. We very much learn that if the villains are sent back to their homeworlds, they'll be killed, and that's why, dun dun dun, there's no way home, or off that bridge. Now, in their own realities, the Spider-Men of their universes were responsible for their deaths, and this is why Peter feels guilty. The only villain who wasn't killed originally was Sandman, but from what I've been told on the movie, we will end up learning what happened after the events of Spider-Man 3. Sandman apparently says that Peter forgave him, but Strange will inform us that they crossed paths years later, and he was killed during that fight.
Oh.
Take that with a pinch of salt, but it makes sense as to why Sandman is wrestling with being good and bad.
Okay, that explains something I was actually quite curious about, because I'm like, why would Sandman be after Peter Parker again if they ended things on a good note in Spider-Man 3? Because that moment is kind of burned into my mind of when Sandman and, Peter Parker make friends. They come to a truce, and then Sandman just sort of goes off into the wind.
The first trailer did show him stopping an Electro blast, and you could catch what looked like the pair fighting, so that just makes a lot of sense. I love how the villains are just really fighting for their survival, and that added humanity we get in this new look is great, and it just really helps to flesh out why Peter is desperate to save them. There's also a giant sand fist, and this is of course very reminiscent of the comics, in which Sandman would often use that as his main attack. Now in the first trailer, we got a good look at the magical cube, and in this we learn more about how it's holding the villains in place at the Sanctorum prison. Peter will steal this, and this will make Strange chase him across New York, and then into the mountains on the back of a train. I love how there's this real conflict between them, and Strange is of course obsessed with protecting reality, whereas Peter very much just wants to protect life. It's a great conflict between them, and throughout the fight we're going to see things like the cape grabbing Peter and so on. Now we get a shot of Electro, and I absolutely love the upgrade that they've given to Jamie Foxx. From what I've been told, the character will warp into the MCU, and it'll be very reminiscent of the opening of a Terminator film in which the killer robot arrives. This will be at a power plant, which is where he'll steal an engineer's jacket, and then he'll get rid of this to don what we see in the trailer. The mask looks amazing, and it's very reminiscent of his look in the comics, but they've upgraded it to make it so that it's electricity that creates it, instead of it just being cloth. You might also notice that they've changed the colouring of his electricity from blue to yellow. This is more in line with the comics too, and it further brings things closer to the way that the live-action characters are presented in the MCU. Now there's a lot more action shots, and we see the three villains, namely Sandman, Electro, and the Lizard. The villain will once more be played by Rhys Ifans, who I'm sure you know from the Amazing Spider-Man series. In that, Dr. KIRK Connors had lost his arm, and he was trying to use the healing factor of lizards in order to find a way to regenerate his limb. However, this backfired, and though it grew back, it turned him into a giant hulking lizard at the same time. Now what I love about Connors, and well most of the villains in this trailer, is that he's somewhat of a tragic character. I was absolutely obsessed with him in the 90s cartoon, as it just fascinated me watching his arm grow back, and then him changing to this hulking beast.
I gotta admit something, the lizard villain leaves the smallest impression in my mind. I remember Andrew Garfield's persona in Amazing Spider-Man more than I remember anything else. I just remember really enjoying the way Andrew Garfield played Peter Parker, but everything about the action in that movie it's not burned in my mind like the way Andrew Garfield's personality was.
Now there's a moment in which the three villains swing forward, and if you look closely, you'll see that the lizard gets hit by something, but it's been CGI'd out. I have no idea what this is, but if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say that it's Andrew Garfield, and they've just removed him for this first look. Very strange moment, but yeah, definitely something worth paying attention to.
What are you talking about?
King Beast. Now there's a moment in which the three villains swing forward, and if you look closely, you'll see that the lizard gets hit by something, but it's been CGI'd out. I have no idea what this is, but if I had to hazard a guess, I'd say that it's Andrew Garfield.
Oh shit.
And they've just removed him for this first look. Very strange moment, but yeah, definitely something worth paying attention to.
Maybe he's just looking around. He hears something like from behind him, like the Sandman whispered, "Hey buddy, you're looking good." It's like, what's that? Why would you? We're about to attack. I don't know.
Now we get a moment in which MJ falls, and Peter jumps after her. Not only is this a slight callback to one of the illusions in Far From Home, but it's very reminiscent of the death of Gwen Stacy from the Amazing Spider-Man 2. That moment also pulled from the comics, in which the Green Goblin threw Gwen off the side of the Brooklyn Bridge. Peter caught her, but she died from either the impact of the fall or because the breakneck speed of the web was literally breakneck.
I always wonder about stuff like that, like in Matrix Reloaded when Neo goes to catch Trinity and he doesn't just obliterate her when he goes to catch her. I mean, obviously you can just assume that he slows down enough to catch her or whatever, but anytime that happens in any comic book, film, or whatever, someone's falling at terminal velocity and you stop them abruptly. It's a movie, it's a comic, whatever, whatever. But yeah, like why wouldn't they just explode or die?
Breakneck speed of the web was literally breakneck. Not a good pun that. Anyway, he wrestled with the guilt over this for some time, and I love how this kind of hints towards the comic storyline and Garfield's films. It would be pretty wild if MJ died at this moment, and hopefully she survives the fall. Now, Strange very much hints towards other people coming through the portal, and I think this will of course be Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. The trailer was very much about showcasing the villains, and I think that they would have teased other ones if it was someone like a Venom or so on. In the post-credit scene of Let There Be Carnage, he was brought to the MCU, so we kinda already know that his entrance wasn't in this scene. So I'm really hoping that we get to see them all come together, but unfortunately this trailer doesn't end the debate of whether they're in the film or not, though it does definitely tease it.
I'm glad it didn't end the debate. I'm hoping that we don't get a commercial with any of that. I'm really happy that they decided not to show. If Toby and Andrew are in the films, I'm glad they didn't show it.
Now, as I mentioned earlier, I think this might be happening when we see the blast come out from the Statue of Liberty, and that kind of ties into the portal opening up and then them coming across. Also, you probably noticed that there's lots of scaffolding at the location, and not to go too far into what's been leaked, but yeah, Andrew Garfield is indeed the werewolf, because this is the exact same scene. Now, I'm recording this at 1:30 AM in the morning, and I'm also about to head to Edinburgh in 6 hours just to take some time out, so I will be back with another video in the week to just talk about all the Easter eggs that I missed in this one, because I'm sure there's a few. I've not had coffee, guys, just let me be. I've tried to be as thorough as possible, but yeah, make sure you let me know in the comments below if there's anything I missed, and I'll be sure to cover it on the next video. Now, for the next two parts of the video, I want to do my reaction first, and then we can get into more of the plot leaks. I thought I'd switch the order I normally do, as you might just want to hear my thoughts, but not any of the spoilers for the film. Anyway, I absolutely love the way that the movie is shaping up to be, and if they manage to stick the landing on this, then it could be one of the best comic book movies of all time.
Yeah.
Spider-Man is one of the medium's most popular characters, and he's right up there next to Batman and Superman in terms of stature and legacy.
Yeah.
The character has had a number of amazing films, and his rogues gallery is arguably one of the best as well. To have this all coming together for the movie makes it feel like an epic for a number of reasons. Director John Watts recently told Empire magazine that this movie feels like Spider-Man Endgame, and it certainly comes across that way. I think it's going to be absolutely filled with Easter eggs, and I can't wait to see what happens when the movie is released. They're really putting everything they can into it, and I think it's going to be one of the biggest movies of all time, even with the pandemic. People are just desperate to see it, and Sony have actually made people hungry for it by holding off on the marketing, because they know that if they keep some secrets, then the hype is just going to be even higher. It's a great second trailer, and the two of these together are absolutely amazing teasers for a film that I really can't wait to see. Now, as hyped as I am, I have to keep a balanced head, and I know that because of everything that's going on in this movie, that there is a chance it's going to suck. They really have to deal with the cliffhanger from Far From Home, introduce the new villains, characters, and also have a great story too, so it doesn't feel like we're just watching fight scene after fight scene with the villains of yesteryear. It's going to be difficult, but Marvel have shown us time and time again that they're up to the challenge, and I can't wait to see it when this movie releases. Now that takes us onto the leaks part of the video, and full spoilers ahead from this point onwards. Leaks like this should be taken with a pinch of salt, but some stuff does seem to be what happens in the two trailers, so just know that I won't be casting a spell to make you forget if you go past this point. It's your own bloody fault. You should have stopped the video, you moron. Now, the opening of the movie is pretty much what we've seen in the teasers.
I'm gonna stop the video here. I'm sorry, I apologize to any of you who wanted me to go all the way through, but I've seen enough. Thank you very much. I very, very much enjoyed getting educated though on the little nuggets here and there, but like, I'm getting to that point where I'm like, I don't know if I can watch these videos anymore because I like the surprises. I totally understand why people get frustrated when there's like a thumbnail that gives something huge away that's in the movie. I get what John Campea is saying, you know? To what he said there towards the end of the part that I watched, which is he has to come to terms with the possibility that it might not be good. I did wonder about that after last night's trailer because I was so enthusiastic. I was so hyped. I'm like, oh God, like, there's so much going on. Please, please, please don't suck. One of the things I pondered was that everything we've seen in the trailer so far is not covering the entire film, meaning usually when you watch a trailer, it's giving you stuff from the entirety of the 3 acts, right? I'm wondering if everything we've seen so far is only like the first 45 minutes to an hour of the movie. It's been a minute, but I feel like I remember the Up trailer, not to like compare this to an animation, I got shit for that the other day. I remember when I watched the Up trailer, what I saw in the trailer, if I recall correctly, didn't cover most of the movie. You only got a trailer for like, what is the first 45 minutes of the film. So I'm wondering if that's a similar case here, where everything we've seen so far, they've been pulling mainly from like the first hour of the movie to give you like an hour and a half to look forward to that it hasn't been advertised whatsoever. A more relevant comparison would probably be like Avengers Endgame. I feel like when we saw the ads for Avengers Endgame before all the TV spots came out, most of what we saw in those commercials didn't come anywhere near covering what was a lot of that movie. You know, they did a really, really good job of advertising it to you and getting you excited without showing you most of the film. So I'm holding out hope that a lot of the chapters in this particular film haven't been shown yet. And the idea of calling it Spider-Man Endgame, it being that epic, is pretty, I mean, that's apt. I think that makes a lot of sense. So I'm just crossing my fingers that with all that's packed into this movie, that it's not just a big fat mess, because it would feel kind of like Rise of Skywalker if it just went from one action scene to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. That wouldn't be a good feeling. It would just be exhausting. It would almost feel like a sugar overload. That being said, I mean, most of the time, Marvel seems to strike a home run, and the only instance I can recall not being like super happy was probably Eternals. I know that a lot of you guys watching this liked Eternals. It just didn't resonate with me as much as I was really hoping. I was championing it, and I came out the theater just not as... I watched it twice, and I was just like, okay, well, and I know for sure that I don't love this movie. I appreciated it more the second time I watched it, but I still don't love it. But outside of Eternals, most of what I watch from Marvels, even the stuff that's not great, I still enjoyed. So for me, I take solace in knowing that the worst that will come of this movie is that I enjoyed it. The worst that will come is that I don't love it. I enjoyed it. It was fun. You get some fan service, you get some dope action, you get some nostalgia, you know, and you had a good time. I guess there's always that concern that with all that has been hyped up, with all the anticipation and all the excitement, that it will never measure up to your expectations, to what you want out of it. But I do believe in a possibility that they can strike lightning twice, because with Avengers Endgame, at least for me, there was so much anticipation leading up to that movie. And for me, they stuck the landing. It truly paid off. So if anyone is able to stick the landing with building up anticipation, building up excitement, and then having you watch the movie and feeling so satisfied that it met your expectations or surpassed it, I feel like if anyone can do that, it's Marvel. You guys, if you haven't already, please hit the subscribe button, bell icon, all notifications, and vote this up to let YouTube know you're enjoying what you're watching. I'm Jaby Koay. Peace out.